This is a podcast on atomic structure. We did atomic structure at the beginning of the year. So let's look at something. Let's look at carbon 14 over 6. And let's talk about this. So that number 6 is the atomic number, and the atomic number is also the number of protons. So this carbon, which is the same for all carbons, has an atomic number of 6 and has 6 protons. This number, the 14, is the mass number, and notice the mass number is always a whole number. And then get out your periodic table that you carry in your back pocket because it's wallet-sized. And if you look at the periodic table for carbon, it's going to say that the mass number is about 12. And I know what I'm going to say is not completely true, but we'll just leave it for our purposes. So if you see that 14 doesn't match what's on the periodic table, which is 12, this particular do-bop or whopper is going to be an isotope. Again, the isotope is where you have the same number of protons, because if you didn't, you wouldn't be the same element, but different number of neutrons. And if you have a different number of neutrons, that means your mass is either more or less, depending on if you have more or less neutrons. So a question I might ask you is, how many neutrons does this have? And what I do is I just do 14 minus 6. So 14 minus 6 is going to give me 8 neutrons. We'll call them neutrons. And again, remember that 6 was the number of protons, or atomic number, and that's the mass number. And the mass number is always a whole number. So if I were to ask you how many electrons, there's nothing written here by the C. There's an unwritten 0. Looks like a house, doesn't it? That means it's neutral. It means that the protons equal the electrons, and if we had 6 protons, that must mean we have 6 electrons for this particular carbon. Let's try another element. Let's try lithium with a plus, and let's put its mass number. I just looked at the periodic table, it's 7. It matches what's on the periodic table, so it's not an isotope, and its atomic number 3. So I might ask you, how many neutrons are there? You just go 7 minus 3 is 4, so it has 4 neutrons. And I might ask you, how many protons? It has 3 protons, because the atomic number is 3, so the protons are 3. And then I might ask you, what is the mass number? The mass number is 7. And what else might I ask you? Oh, the electrons. I'm going to ask you the electrons. So here you have a big clue. If you have this plus here, that means you have 1 less electron. Those refer to the electrons, not to the protons. So a plus means you have 1 less electron. That means you go to your protons, here they are, and you subtract 1 out. So this particular lithium just has 2 electrons. And anything with a plus charge is called a cation. Meow. Now let's try oxygen. This oxygen has a 2 minus charge, and let's say it has a mass of 17, and it is atomic number 8. So I might ask you, how many protons? It has 8 protons. I might ask you, how many neutrons? And then you do 17 minus 8 is 9 neutrons. And I might ask you the mass number. The mass number is 17. And then I might ask you, is this an isotope? Go to the periodic table, and you'll see that oxygen is normally 16, so this one must be our friend isotope. An isotope, it has a different number of neutrons. That's really weird. I don't think oxygen would have this, but I just made that one up for fun. And now I might ask you, how many electrons are there? So you go to here, and you see it has 2 minus. That 2 minus means it has 2 extra electrons. Extra means you add them on. And so you go and look at your protons again. So you have 2 extra. 8 plus 2 is 10. So this one has 10 electrons. And this particular thing is a 2 minus charge, which means it's an anion. So let's review what we looked at. We looked at symbols, for example, like a carbon and a 14 and a 6. We looked at a lithium with a plus and a 7 and a 3. And we looked at, I'm going to change it up and do a fluorine. And this fluorine has a charge of a mass of 19 and an atomic number 9. And this one is called neutral because there's no charge on it. This one has a positive. It means it lost 1 electron, and it is a cation, and this one has a negative. It means it gained one electron. It means it's an anion. And I think that one matches what's on the periodic table, that one matches what's on the periodic table, that one doesn't, so that means this one is the isotope. I hope that helps you with your atomic structure studying. Until next time, ciao.